Welcome to part 2 of our Excel session. In this second part we're going to concentrate on drawing a column plot. So I'm highlighting here the type of column plot that we're going to draw. Handy, for example, if you want to plot out cell viability from a particular experiment or the outcomes of any particular experiment that you might happen to have done. So we're going to switch over now to Excel. And if you've watched the first part, you'll know how to move around in Excel, and I want you to go to cell A1. So I'm going to left click on cell A1 and then I'm going to type in some information. I will place the information on the Blackboard site and the description of this YouTube video. So in cell A1 I'm going to type the letters A, A2, B, C and so forth, and then I'm going to put in some values. So 235, 284, 269, 112, 123, 185, 245, 340, 292. Now this is a good point to pause the video and copy those numbers into your Excel spreadsheet if you want to. So what these numbers represent are triplicates from an experiment. And so what the first thing we want to do is to take an average of these numbers. Now to do that we can use two different formulas. First of all, we'll show you one method and then we'll show you the method in Excel which uses a particular function. Now I want you to go to cell F1 and then retype in A, B and C. This is going to make it easier later to draw our graph. Now the first example uses a short equation. Now in Excel, if you want to tell Excel that you're going to write an equation, you need to press the equals sign. You'll see that equals is now shown up in this top corner here. That tells Excel I'm going to write in an equation. And what we're going to tell it to do is to take the average. So we're going to say open a bracket. I did that by pressing Shift 9. And now I'm going to say, well, let's take cell B1, click on that, plus C1 plus D1 and close the bracket. So if you remember your maths, anything inside a bracket will happen first of all. So B1 plus C1 plus D1. And there are three values. So I'm going to divide that by 3. That's a simple equation within Excel. Remember, the equals sign tells Excel that you're going to use an equation. So what we've got here is the average of those values. Now that was a bit long-winded, and you can imagine if you've got lots of values, that's going to take a long time. There are shortcuts. So I'm now going to delete that cell. I'm going to click on G1. And I'm going to press delete, and that equation has now disappeared. Now in Excel, again remember, if we press equals, that means we're going to tell it's an equation, and it has built-in equations. The one we're going to use is called average. So we're going to start typing the word average in now. And you'll see that this quick box has shown up. There's average there. Finish typing it in. So average. Now we're going to put a bracket, so Shift 9. That's opened up the bracket. I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to left click and hold down the key over B1 and drag across to D1. Then I'm going to release. We've now got the values B1 colon D1 and I'm going to close the brackets. So what we've done here is told Excel, first of all, equals. I'm going to use an equation. The equation I'm going to use is average. I'm going to open up the brackets and I want you to average all the numbers between B1 and D1. And there you go. It's taken the average for us. Now what we don't want to have to do is to type that equation in every single time we do a different cell. You'll notice here there is a little square. I'm just going to get the computer to zoom in. If I zoom in here, you see here we've got the little square. There it is here. And we're going to left click on that, holding down the mouse key and drag down to this location here. So if I now hover over it, can you see that the cursor has changed? I'm going to left click and hold the mouse key down and slowly drag down to cell G3 and release. What that has done is copied the equation from the top to the bottom. So now we've got the averages for each of these columns across the side. The next thing we need to do is to find out how variable our data is. We want to know how well or how spread out that data is. This gives us a reflection of how accurate our data is being, or how noisy the data is, how much sort of randomness there will be within the numbers that we're generating. So we're going to take the standard deviation. To do that, again, we're going to use equals. So equals means put in an equation. And the equation we're going to put in is standard deviation, and that is STDEV, standard deviation. We're going to open the bracket up, drag across like we did for the averaging from B1 to D1, and close the bracket. Press enter, and there's our standard deviation value. And just like last time, I'm going to click on cell H1. I'm going to hover over this little square here, click and drag and drop that down, and there we have our standard deviations. So now we've got this column here, column G, with our averages in, and this column H with our standard deviations in. If you've not caught up at this point, now is a good point to pause the video and continue to put these numbers in. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is to draw our graph itself. To do this, again, we're going to left click in cell F1. I'm going to left click and hold the button down and drag down to G3 and then release. You'll see that these values here are now highlighted. These are the values that we're going to draw our graph from. Now, to draw a graph in Excel, we have to tell it we want to insert something. And you can see here on the top corner is the word insert. So I'm going to click on insert. I'm then going to click on the type of graph I want, which is a column graph. And I want this one here. It's a cluster column. I'll click on that. The little symbol is whizzing around, and here's my graph. We've drawn our first column graph. Excellent. So now we can see our different values. Now we also need to see the standard deviations in our values. So we want to find out how spread out those particular values are. To do that, I'm going to go to Layout. I'm going to go to Error Bars. I'm going to go to More Error Bars. I'll move this out of the way so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to click this little button here called Custom. These circular buttons with dots in are called radio buttons. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to specify the value, so I want to use the values that I've calculated from my data set. Specify those. And we're going to put a positive error bar. Can you see this is highlighted? Again, can you see that equals? That means values are going in. And I'm going to left click on cell H1, click and hold and drag down to H3. I'm then going to click on OK. And then I'm going to click on Close. We've now put the error bars on the top of our columns, and we can see how spread out these particular data sets are.